Hey, what's up, sports bettors? It's Matt Modi here with OddsJam. And what I'm going to be doing in this video, I'm just going to give you a full Week 1 NFL betting preview. Literally going to talk about every single game in the NFL, a full NFL Week 1 betting preview. So it's really cool using OddsJam. You can find the lines for every single game for completely free. So just go to oddsjam.com sports NFL, and it literally pulls up every single game, even for some future ones. So if you want to lock in some early week 2 week 2 bets, you can using OddsJam. And what's also cool is if you click into a play, which I have up the Bills Rams, it'll give you the main line odds for all the different sports books. So money line, point spread, total points, all right here in front of you. So for every single game, I will give you my official predictions, who I think is going to win, whether I think the total is going to be over or under. And then I will also give you specific bets that I think are worthy of being actually locked in. So I'm going to give a prediction for every single one. Then I'm also going to give best bets for each game as well, if I have one. So starting with the Rams versus Bills. The Bills come into the season as the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. If you look at all the different sports books and what they price their odds at, every single sports book has the Bills as the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And it makes sense. They have a dynamite offense led by Josh Allen. So they have a superstar quarterback in Josh Allen, superstar wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. They have good other weapons outside of those two in Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Dawson Knox, decent running backs in Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and then rookie James Cook. Decent is probably being a little bit generous to some of them, like Zach Moss, but we will see. They have a defense that finished first in DVOA last year. They were the number 1 defense in the entire NFL. If they don't wet their pants in the divisional round against the Chiefs with 13 seconds left, or if they get the ball first in overtime, they probably win the Super Bowl, and things look a lot different in Buffalo. But what did happen happened. They blew it. So now we're here. On the Rams side, obviously defending Super Bowl champs. I've been on record a lot on this YouTube channel and on the podcast Sweat the Bet that I was unimpressed with the Rams Super Bowl run last year. They blew a 24-point lead against the Bucs, fumbling like 4 times. In the NFC Championship game, they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter, and they probably lose if Jaquiski Tartt catches the easiest interception he'll ever get in his career. And then in the Super Bowl, it was extremely frustrating Sean McVay's play calling. He kept calling run plays on first down consistently to no success. It was very, very frustrating, but they won, so I should just shut up. So looking at this game, I think the Bills will end the season with a better record than the Rams. To be clear, I think they're the better team. But for week 1, I am riding with the Rams. Sean McVay is 5-0 in week 1 in his coaching career with the Rams. Super Bowl champs are 18-3 straight up in the past 21 years. And that stat makes sense because if you win the Super Bowl, obviously you were a good team the previous year and you normally get a home game. I can only think of one example where the Super Bowl winner didn't get a home game, and that was the Ravens. So I actually like the Rams in this one. I like their money line. So if you want to lock in their money line, you can get it at Bet Rivers. Now, this is no longer a positive expected value play, so this isn't an official bet. But to give a prediction, I will take the Rams. I also like, obviously, their spread, but the odds have shifted. So I got the Rams at plus 125 money line. I got them at plus 3 on the point spread. So it's no longer a plus EV play. But one play that I do think is worth locking in, put a unit on this one, is the over 51.5. It's a high total. I get it. But I think the Bills, despite having the number 1 DVOA last year in defense, I think they're going to struggle to begin the year because I'm nervous about the injury to Tre'Davious White. He is out for the first 4 weeks, recovering from a torn ACL suffered last year. And the Bills are going to be starting a rookie, Kaiir Elam, in week 1. Granted, he's a first-round pick, so he definitely has talent. But everybody says that it's kind of universally regarded that cornerback, outside of quarterback, is the hardest position to play as a rookie. So going up against the Rams receivers in week 1, Allen Robinson, obviously Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, a good passing offense with McVay and Matt Stafford, I think that the Rams are going to score a lot of points, and I still do love the Bills offense. I think they're going to score a lot of points too. So I do love this over as an official play. The over 51.5. Lock this in at -110 on DraftKings. Let's just go through it. Next up, we have the Falcons at the Saints. So this is kind of funny. The Saints have a new head coach, a quarterback coming off of a torn ACL, and they're favored by 5.5 points against the Falcons. I get why the Falcons have probably the worst roster, up in maybe bottom 3 worst roster in all of football. I do actually like the Falcons secondary. They have some good players in the secondary, but defensive line is bad. Linebacker is bad. Offensively, they have a bad offensive line. They have bad skill positions. But I will admit, quarterback Marcus Mariota actually looked better in the preseason than I was expecting. Either way, these are two teams that I am aggressively looking to fade this year. I think the Saints under win total is one of my favorite bets. I also think the Falcons under win total is another good bet. But for this game, the Falcons are at home. I love fading the Saints. I don't necessarily think the Saints, or I don't necessarily think the Falcons win, but I do think that they'll do good enough to cover the 5.5 spread. So getting the Falcons plus 5.5 at -107 on PointsBet, I do like. In terms of the over/under, I would actually probably lean towards the under on this one. None of these are going to be official bets because I'm not super confident in them. I could easily see the Falcons getting blown out. I just don't have a lot of faith in either of these teams. But I would guess that this probably goes towards the under. The Saints have a legitimately good defense, and I think they're going to have a bad offense. So that kind of just screams under. I also don't think the Falcons are going to have a good offense regardless. So now they're going against a really good defense in the Saints that has been top 3 in DVOA in the past couple years. I think this leans under. Not seeing any value here, really. The OddsJam line, sharpest line in the world, prices the under at 42.5 at -110. BetOnline, another sharp book, prices this under -115. So a little bit of value there. So if you did want to lock anything in, I would probably say the under. But official predictions, I will take the Falcons covering and I will take this going under. But I do think the Saints actually win. Next up, Panthers versus Browns in the revenge game for Baker Mayfield. This is actually, I'm very excited to see what Baker Mayfield looks like in this game. I will say the odds have been shifting heavier towards the Browns as time has gone on. So there was a positive expected value play on the Panthers money line at -125. But as we can see, it's actually been bet down. Now the OddsJam line has them at -117. In terms of a spread, kind of a wide ranging spread here, going from 1 to 2.5. I still, even with the odds changing, I like the Panthers in this one. I do buy the Baker Mayfield revenge narrative, playing against the team that did him dirty, trading for Deshaun Watson, giving him all that money after all the scandal surrounding Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, is out for this game, which I think obviously is very important. So I think that the Baker Mayfield is going to have a good game. I do like his weapons. I worry about their offensive line against the Browns' defensive line, obviously most notably Myles Garrett. So I wouldn't say I'm super confident in this one as much as I'm not as confident as I was originally about this one. But I think the Browns are just going to have an absolute train wreck season after the trade for Deshaun Watson. I think that's going to go horribly for them. So I do like the Panthers money line in this one. In terms of spread, I'll take them at -1.5. Most books have it at -1.5. So I would take it there. And in terms of the over or under, looks like the over is the value play here, over 41.5. You can get that at -104 on FanDuel, whereas the OddsJam line prices that at -115. The next one, Bears versus 49ers. I'll keep this one brief. I'm rounding with the 49ers on this one. The Bears have, I looked this up, PFF's second worst offensive line in the NFL. They have the worst skill positions in the NFL, according to PFF. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears couldn't even score 15 points in this game. Justin Fields, the Bears are pretty much doing exactly what you're not supposed to do with the young quarterback, surrounding him with horrible weapons and horrible offensive line. 6.5, I get it, is a scary, scary number because of how green the 49ers quarterback Trey Lance is. But I just think that, again, I just can't see the Bears scoring a lot of points in this game. So I'll take the 49ers -6.5. And it looks like the value here, it was on the over, but it's been bet down so much. Excuse me, it was on the under. I think I got it at under 42. It's been bet down so much. I still like the under in this one. A raw quarterback, a horrible offense. 40.5 is very low, but I'll take under 40.5 at -107 on PointsBet as my official bet. Next up, Steelers Bengals. This is actually one of my hotter takes on this one. I actually like the Steelers to cover the spread in this one. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they won straight up. The Bengals are getting a lot of love, understandably so, because of, obviously, they went to the Super Bowl last year. Now they're getting Burrow back another year healthy from his knee injury. They made significant upgrades along the offensive line. Their defense should be okay. They were kind of, they had a good playoff run, their defense did, but they weren't good in the regular season. But I just have a lot of faith in Mike Tomlin. I think that getting rid of Big Ben, well, he retired, so they didn't get rid of him, but losing Big Ben, I think, will have an actual positive impact on the Steelers' offense. Big Ben ended last year as PFF's worst rated quarterback in the entire NFL. Out of 37 quarterbacks that qualified in terms of minimum snaps played, Big Ben was literally the absolute worst quarterback. So while I'm not high on Mitchell Trubisky, I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, I do think that he will be an upgrade from what the Steelers got from Big Ben. I also don't have a ton of faith in the Bengals coaching staff. They disguise their run plays when they're going to run, when they're going to pass, so the defense knows what's coming. Obviously, as talented as they are with Burrow and Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, they're going to be a good offense, but against a smart team like the Steelers and a good defense like the Steelers, I really like the Steelers to cover in this one. So PointsBet is giving you pretty good unjuiced markets, only pricing this at -107 each way. The OddsJam line pricing it at -108. So you're not getting a huge positive EV play here, but I really like the Steelers to cover. In terms of the total, I like the under on this one as well. I'm not super confident in these. One bet that I would take that I forgot to mention is the 49ers spread is one that I would take. I also would actually take the under. These two, I would probably sit out. Well, I do, official predictions have the Steelers covering. I'm not super confident in that because I could just see Burrow going nuts. I mean, I love Joe Burrow. I just don't have a ton of faith in the Bengals coaching staff. And I'll take the under on this one. I'll back the Steelers defense. I'll back that the Bengals offense will start slower than people are expecting. And I'll take the under, and that's where the value is as well. So next up, my Eagles versus the Lions. I'll try to keep this one as non-biased as possible. Try to not come across as a homer. The Eagles, unsurprisingly, are pretty big. I mean, decent favorites here, 3.5, 4 points. Their money line odds, the -187, according to the OddsJam line. So both of these teams figure to see improvements on what they were last year. Despite going to the playoffs last year, the Eagles weren't really that good of a team. They only made the playoffs because of an easy schedule, but they made legitimate improvements. I mean, they should be better at literally every single position, except maybe running back, than they were last year. You expect Jalen Hurts to take a step up at quarterback, another year starting. Wide receiver, they traded for A.J. Brown. At tight end, Goddard is looking really good in training camp, supposed to have a good year. At defensive line, they signed Hassan Reddick and drafted Jordan Davis. At linebacker, they drafted Nakobe Dean and they signed Kaiser White. Secondary, they signed James Bradbury, traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Up and down the roster, this Eagles team should be better than what they were last year. That's why they're getting so much hype. The Lions, despite winning 3 games, actually covered the spread in 11 of 17 games last year. One game they didn't cover was against these Eagles, when the Eagles just ran the ball down the throat of the Lions. I think for over 200 yards, the Eagles ended up winning like 44-6, something obscene. Really just a huge blowout. The value here is giving you the Lions at +7, telling you the Lions are the better bet here, but I would rather take the Eagles at -3.5. I do think they cover the spread. This isn't going to be an official bet because there's no value here, but I do think they cover. They have a really good defensive line. The Lions just lost their starting guard, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, for the first 4 weeks of the season. Their defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year, and the only real improvement they made was drafting Aiden Hutchinson. Really, really good player. Won't solve the defense. And I'm not convinced that Dan Campbell is actually a good quarterback. I think that people just fall in love with him because he's the ultimate football guy. Good head coach. But we have no evidence that he's actually a good head coach. In terms of the total, the total opened up at like 45.5 or 46, has been bet up a ton all the way to 48. But I still like it to go over. I think the Eagles are going to put up a ton of points, and the Lions, to their credit, never give up. So I could see them, even if they're down big, coming back and scoring a couple touchdowns at the end of the game. So the OddsJam line prices this total looks like at 49, according to the main line. I like it at over 48.5 on PointsBet. I would take this as an official bet. I actually have taken it, but I got it at 46. I still think it's good at 48.5, so I would take this one as an official bet. And next up, we have Texans versus Colts. Colts are the biggest favorite of week one in this game, despite being away. They're literally the biggest favorite in terms of spread and money line odds. In terms of the spread, that's just too rich for my blood. 8 points, 7 points. Even though I don't think the Texans are going to be that good, I actually do like them to cover the spread on this one. Davis Mills had a pretty good rookie year when you consider the circumstances. While this Texans team is completely devoid of talent, the Colts haven't won a week one game in Frank Reich's entire career. He's literally 0-4 or 0-5 week one with some horrible losses in there too. Like they lost to the Jaguars 2 years ago in the literal only win the entire Jaguar season. Last year they lost to the Seahawks in week one in a year what ended up being a down year for Seattle. So getting the Texans plus 7.5 at minus 112 odds on BetRivers, I think is a good bet. Not an official one. That will be my official prediction. In terms of the total, looks like the value is on the under here, under 46.5 at BetRivers. I do think that this one's good. Again, I'm not taking an official bet, but I will have my official prediction saying this one goes under. Next up, Dolphins versus Patriots, two teams that I am actually looking to fade this year. I think the Dolphins are getting a little bit too much love after all the moves they made. I'm not a Tua guy. I'm also not a Jalen Hurts guy, and I have the Eagles covering week one. I also think that the Dolphins cover week one as well. I like getting them at minus 3.5. I would take them at minus 107. Minus 107 at PointsBet. It does look like the better value here is on the Patriots at plus 4, but if I were to give my official predictions, I would actually take the Dolphins covering, but this would be a no bet for me. The Patriots, they made the playoffs last year, but they were not as good as their record and their point total indicated. They beat the pants off of the bad teams. Here's a crazy stat for you. In games that the Patriots were favored in last year, so only games they were favored, they covered by an average of 14 points. They didn't win by an average of 14 points, but they covered by an average of 14 points. And that's just insane. But if you go through their schedule, they had some absolutely lopsided victories. They beat the pants off the Browns, off the Jaguars, off the Jets. But against winning teams, they played 10 of them. I think they only won 3. They played these Dolphins twice and lost. And the Dolphins should only get better this year. And reports out of training camp is that the offense for the Patriots is really, really struggling, which doesn't surprise me. Go look up the Patriots offensive coaching staff. It's led by Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, two of the biggest idiots in the entire NFL, leading that Patriots offense. So I love the Dolphins to cover here. Actually, I was wrong. You can get them at minus 105 on FanDuel. That will be the best bet if you do want to back the Dolphins, but I will admit the value isn't there, so not an official bet. In terms of over-under, I like the under in this one, fading the Patriots offense, fading Tua. Seems like a good bet to me, so I like the under. So under 46.5, Dolphins covering 3.5 as my predictions for this one. The next game, we have the Jets versus the Ravens. Sneak preview, Ravens are my favorite survivor pick for this week. Even though the spread has been bet all the way up to 7, I got them at 5.5 earlier this offseason. I still really like the Ravens to cover. The Jets are starting Joe Flacco. He hasn't won a game since 2019. He was 2-6 with the Broncos that year. Hasn't won a game since. Going against the Ravens, I get the revenge narrative. I don't care. I love the Ravens in this one. The Jets had the worst defense in the entire NFL last year. Didn't really have a ton of improvements in the offseason. The Ravens had one of the most snake-bitten seasons I've ever seen last year, losing pretty much their entire secondary, their entire running back room, and then Lamar Jackson missed the last 4 or 5 games of the year. They were 8-3 before Lamar Jackson got hurt, even with all those injuries. So I love the Ravens this year. I love getting them to cover 7 points. In terms of the total, looks like the value here is on this total going over 44.5. If I were to guess, I would actually lean towards the under on this one to give my official prediction, but the value here is stating with the over. So for me, this would be a no bet. And I do like the Ravens at -7. That would be an official bet for me. I've locked it in at a bunch of different numbers. I haven't gotten it all the way up at -7, but I still like it there. But I probably wouldn't bet it above that number. I would bet it at -7, and then I wouldn't touch it after that. I like getting that first touchdown, but to put full predictions out there, Ravens -7, and I actually think, again, I think it goes under, but the value is saying the over, which means just a no bet. The next one here, oh boy, the Jaguars versus the Commanders. Always fun for me. I get to roast Carson Wentz. The last time we saw Carson Wentz on a football field, he was playing against these Jaguars, a team that only won 3 games last year. All Wentz needed to do with the Colts was win one of their last 2 games, and they go to the playoffs. Instead, what Wentz did is put on one of the worst quarterback performances in 2 games in a row that this world has ever seen. 2 turnovers against the Jaguars defense, taking sack after sack, and that was just what we became to know and love of Carson Wentz last year. He had a lot of really dumb, unforced turnovers, trying to do too much. Now he's going against a Jaguars team that should see improvements with Doug Peterson at head coach. I think the likability factor going from going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson can't be overstated and how valuable that is. Urban Meyer just didn't run an NFL team last year. Doug Peterson, in his time with the Eagles, everybody loved Doug. So I love the Jaguars to win straight up. I definitely love them to cover the spread. I got it at 4. Looks like it's been bet all the way down to 2.5. I still like it at that number. I like their money line as well. And I'm going to guess that this game goes under. I'm fading the Carson Wentz-led Commanders offense here. I'm still not super high on the Jaguars offense as well. And I do think that the Commanders, they should have a better defense than they had last year. I get that Chase Young's out, but they have a pretty strong defensive line still, and I expect their defense to be better. So I would take the under 107 on this one. But in terms of my favorite pick, Jaguars, I think throwing a half unit on them money line to upset the Commanders, I think is a really good bet. And then, of course, taking the under. So I think that's it for the 1 o'clock games. Now we have a really good game in the Cardinals versus the Chiefs. This spread's been doing some weird things. It started at Chiefs 3.5. Within the past 2 days, has been bet all the way up to Chiefs 5.5. I think that's because of the injuries that the Cardinals have suffered. J.J. Watt is questionable. Zach Ertz is questionable. A couple of other players that I can't remember off the top of my head. So I guess I'll probably lean with the Chiefs here. This goes against my picks against the spread article before all this news came out. Money's flying in on the Chiefs. I guess I'll back them at 5.5. But my favorite play for this, probably my favorite totals bet for this entire slate is this game going over. I would put a full 1.5 units on this total going over. So the Chiefs, every single year, start really fast on offense and really slow on defense. Last year, their first 5 games went over this 53.5 total. They averaged over 60 points in their first 5 games, with a couple games going over 70. Against the Eagles, they put up 42. They let up 70 points. Against the Ravens, they let up 36. They scored 35, over 70 points. Literally their first 5 games went over. And the Cardinals, for as easily roastable as they are for how slow they end the seasons, that still does, in order to have a slow end, you need to have a fast start. So I expect them to start fast on offense. Getting this total over 53.5 at -105 is a very, very good play for me. I absolutely love it. It's the highest total of the week, so I get the nervousness around taking the over. I don't care. My favorite bet in terms of a totals play is this over 53.5 -105 on WinBet. And I wouldn't make this an official bet, but I guess I'll take the Chiefs at -5.5. I'll just follow the money at that point. So next up, another awesome game, Raiders versus Chargers. So this is a game that I admittedly have kind of waffled on as time has gone on. So at the beginning of the season, the beginning of the offseason, I should say, I really liked the Raiders. I got them at +4. Got them at plus 3.5 a couple other places. But now being able to get the Chargers at -3. So either way, I'm not going to recommend a side on this one in terms of an official bet. To give a prediction, I will stick with the Raiders at plus 3.5. I thought about waffling to the Chargers -3, but I will stick with my Raiders at 3.5, which I've been beating the drum all offseason. But I will admit, the more research I do into the Chargers, it makes me like them more. I think they're my prediction to have the best offense in the entire NFL. Last year, their issues were on offense specifically, were on the right side of the offensive line. They pretty much shored that up as the season went along, and that shouldn't be nearly as much of an issue this year as it was last year. Justin Herbert is obviously a stud. His weapons, he's got Keenan Allen, he's got Mike Williams. Even like his lower weapons, like Josh Palmer and Julian Guyton, I believe is the one as the other receiver's name. Austin Eckler at running back is good. Defensively is why I'm fading the Chargers, because last year they ended the season with the 5th or 6th worst defense in the entire NFL. They did make upgrades to it. They traded for Khalil Mack. They signed J.C. Jackson, but Jackson is already nursing an ankle injury, having an off-season scope. And to me, I think that this game ends within a field goal. I think the Raiders could have the best 3 weapons in the entire NFL after the Devontae Adams trade, with Adams, with Renfro, with Darren Waller. Now that Waller seems to be fine, he was sitting out with a hamstring injury, which is really a contract-related issue, but he's back. And I think this game ends within a field goal. I think the Chargers, despite how good they are, they've been good on paper for the past 20 years, pretty much the entirety of Phillip Rivers' career, but they always seem to have something go wrong. So part of that's just sitting in my gut, expecting something to go wrong for the Chargers. But I hope they prove me wrong. I love Justin Herbert, so we'll see. But getting the Raiders at plus 3.5 at -105 on DraftKings, I think is a good bet. In terms of the total, I think this is a great, great bet to go over. 2 great offenses, 2 bad defenses. The OddsJam line prices this total at -107. You can get it on PointsBet at the OddsJam line prices the total at 52.5 at -107. You can get it at 52 at -107 on PointsBet. BetOnline favors the over as well, pricing it at -115. I love the over in this one. I would make this one of my official bets. Take the over 52 -107 on PointsBet. Next up, another great game, Packers versus Vikings. I'm going to zag a little bit. I'm guessing from what most people think. I actually like the Vikings in this one. I think that while the Packers, they're going to be fine over the course of the regular season. In week 1, I'm a little nervous. First game without Devontae Adams. Allen Lazard might not play because he's got his foot stepped on in practice. He's been out for the past week. The Packers starting tackles entered training camp banged up and just recently became healthy in left tackle David Bakhtiari and right tackle Elton Jenkins. That makes me nervous. While I do think the Packers are going to be really good defensively, I also really like the Vikings offensively. Past 2 years, Kirk Cousins has had 35 plus touchdowns and 4,200 plus passing yards. He's been really good. It's been the Vikings defense that has let them down. So I like the Vikings at +2 in this one. I would get them at -107 on PointsBet. Not an official play, but in order to get a prediction. And then on the total, I think while the value is screaming the under in this one, I like the over. Over, if you want to get that at -105 on DraftKings, you can. Now the value isn't there. The math isn't there, so that also won't be an official play. My guess would be over. The math says under. Generally, the math always wins on that one, so I'm just going to sit out an official bet on this one. But I do really like the Vikings to cover 2 points at -107 on PointsBet. Now, this game's kind of boring, so I'll keep it quick. 2 teams that I think could end the season as below average. The Titans are a prime candidate to take a step back in 2022. They were probably one of the flukiest 1 seeds I can remember last year in the AFC. They finished 20th in the regular season in DVOA. They weren't even a top half team in terms of DVOA. They finished 20th. Now they lost A.J. Brown due to a trade to the Eagles. Ryan Tannehill I've never been that high on, and Derrick Henry is coming off of the first major injury of his career with the broken foot. Now he did return in the playoffs from that injury, but he was terrible in that game. So I think the Titans are going to take a step back. The Giants have been bad for the past 6 years. They're one of the only teams in the NFL that have yet to have a winning record at any point in the last 5 years. They won 11 games in 2016, and they've been trash ever since. But new head coach and Brian Daboll. Gone is the horrible, horrible Joe Judge. I do like Daboll as a coach. I think the Giants could keep this one close, so I'll take them at plus 5.5 at minus 107. In terms of the over/under, I guess I don't have a strong conviction here on this over/under. I guess I'll probably take the math says that the over is the play here at minus 107 on PointsBet. I guess I'll go with that. I don't have a strong conviction towards this under. I can see arguments for both sides, so I'll go ahead and sit out in an official play, but to give my prediction, I guess I'll take the over 43.5. Now for the Sunday night game, really good one between the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. This game, admittedly, both teams have been pretty tortured by injuries so far. The Cowboys obviously losing Tyron Smith. Michael Gallup is out for this game as he's recovering from an ACL injury. On the Bucs side, they're missing 3 interior offensive linemen to injury. I think that's going to bode well, obviously, for a Tom Brady-led team who struggles with pressure up the middle. I mean, every quarterback struggles with it, but Brady can't move, so he struggles even more. But I still like the Bucs in this one. The Cowboys in the Dak Prescott era are only 17-15 or 15-13. They're only 2 games above 500 without Tyron Smith, and they're very good with him. I think that the Cowboys are primed to take a step back from last year, where they finished number 1 in DVOA, but they led the NFL in defensive touchdowns. They led the NFL in takeaways, in defensive takeaways. Those stats are never sticky year over year. On offense, they lost Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup's out. I think they could really struggle. Of course, Dallas has the high-end talent to be one of the best teams in the NFL, but I think they're going to take a step back, and I love taking the Bucs in this one. I already took their money line, but in terms of against the spread, I'll take them at minus 2.5 as well at minus 107. In terms of the total, I like this one to go under. I think these offenses are actually going to struggle a lot more than we give them credit for. Both teams with injuries along the offensive line. Both teams with injuries at skill positions with Chris Godwin and Michael Gallup. Now, Godwin is actually looking like he's going to play, but he's still coming back from an ACL that he tore in December, so I worry that he won't be 100%. So I really like the under in this one, and I really like the Bucs in this one. 2 bets that I really like. Lastly, Monday Night Football. Kudos on the NFL for scheduling this one in week 1. Russell Wilson returning to Seattle in his first game with Denver. Odds have just been flying in Denver's favor in this one. I got them at minus 3.5 at the beginning of the offseason. Now they're all the way up at 6.5. To me, that's a stay away. If I had to give an official prediction, I would say the Broncos probably cover 6.5, but I'm not going to make that one of my official bets. It's just too many points for a team in the Broncos with a brand new quarterback in Russell Wilson and a brand new coaching staff. So it's going to take a lot for that team to gel. I do love their talent, especially at the receivers. I love Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler is going to be good. They have 2 good running backs in Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And the Seahawks have the worst offensive line in the NFL. They have a bottom 10 defense in the NFL. They lost Bobby Wagner. They do have good receivers in Lockett and Metcalf. Unfortunately, they don't have anybody to throw it to them. So I like the Broncos in this one, even at 6.5. I'm not going to make it an official bet, but what I do really like is this going under. I do like the under 45 at minus 115. Both OddsJam and BetOnline price this at 44.5. Granted, they favor the over at that number, so it's not a great play. But to give my prediction, I would take the under in this one in the Broncos versus Seahawks game. So that is my week 1 betting preview, official picks against the spread, and total picks for every single game. Let me know what I got right, what I got wrong. Let me know what you agreed with or what bets you're taking. Love hearing all the feedback. But that's it. So I appreciate you guys watching. Definitely don't remember to hit the like button and to subscribe to the OddsJam YouTube channel. And that's it. So thanks for watching and have a good one.